without you. So I guess the question becomes now, what are you afraid of? What has you so worried that you're not going to take that chance that you want to take? In fact, let me ask you, what's the worst thing that can happen to you in life?
Death.
Yeah, death. And guess what? It's going to happen. And yet you wake up every day and you manage to go about your life. So I guess that question continues. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid to ask your crush out? What's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen? They say no. They embarrass you. Ooh, you're going to die. You know that, right? You're going to apply for this job. Oh, but what if they don't hire me? Ooh. You're going to die. You know this. Everything else pales in comparison to that. And yet every great achievement that you attain, death is going to pale against. People don't typically remember you for your failures. People remember you for your few successes. Why don't you apply for the job? Well, what if I don't get it? Well, what are you afraid of? Well, ultimately that means I'm not good enough. If I don't measure up, then that means I don't matter. If I don't matter, I may as well have never even lived. Holy shit, just apply for the job, bro. Is it that deep? Probably. But you're gonna die anyway, so apply for the job. Ask your crush out. What if they say no? What do you hear? Not yet. Whether you apply for that job or not, life's gonna go on. Wouldn't it be better if you got the job? Maybe. We don't know actually. Maybe it's the worst thing that could ever happen to you that you get the job. We don't know. And you won't know until afterwards. And even afterwards you probably won't even know. All you'll know is that you lived a life. And so I guess what I'm saying is be humble. Be humble. And take your chances. Go for the opportunities, take your chances. What's the worst that can happen? Ooh. Have you guys ever heard of a band called the Smiths? Yeah. If you haven't heard of the Smiths, that's your homework. Go listen to the Smiths. The Smiths are the greatest band to ever exist. And I can reason with you on that and explain it to you, and if you don't like that, I can fight you on it too. The Smiths are great. They are not only are they the greatest band to ever form, they're also probably your favorite band's favorite band as well. In other words, they're also really, really influential. But they're not even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is just an outrage. So I'll leave it at that before I make terroristic threats against the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They have this great song called Cemetery Gates. I mentioned it last period, and so I'll bring it up again here. That the singer, it's about him and a friend. It's about him and a friend. They go wandering around in a cemetery. It's exactly what it sounds like. And there's some great lines in there. He says, so we go inside and we gravely read the stones. All those people, all those lives, and where are they now? With loves and hates and passions just like mine, they were born, and then they lived, and then they died. And he says, which seems so unfair, he says. So he's going through the cemetery, he's looking down at the gravestones, and he sees people's names, and he sees the dates on which they were born, and then he sees the dates on which they died, and sometimes it's just a year. It's not even a full-on date, just a year. And then he says, which seems really unfair, because there's nothing like, there's just a dash that represents your life, like 1900 to 1980 or whatever. And all that explains your life is this one dash. And you think about how much can fit into that dash. I mean, it's a whole lifetime. It's 80 years that would fit into that dash right there. With all of the same loves and hates and passions, just like you. And now where are they? You're standing above them and you're looking down at the grave marker. And there are a couple of ways of seeing that. Just like there are a couple of ways of hearing, I'm the greatest. You can hear it as good. Now that gives me something to aspire to rise up to. Or it can cause you to say, oh, well, if you're the best, I just give up. You can look at those dates and say, wow, I've only got this immeasured time right now to make the most of it. Or you can see it as, well, there's no point in going on because it's just going to be, everything ends in the same way. I'd encourage you to think very deeply about the first prospect, because that dash that's between those 2 years, that is going back to what Ariana was saying earlier, that is the center of your world. That's all of what you are. It's your whole existence. What I'm getting at is this. When you're standing above that tombstone, you're looking down at it. Is it true that life will go on without you? The answer is yes. It's already going on without you. The person who's buried there, life is going on without them. Life was here before them, and life will go on without them. And notice that he's talking about life here. He doesn't just say the world. We oftentimes say that, oh, the world doesn't revolve around you. The world will go on without you. He's talking about life here. And to be truly humble, also, as Ryan said, is to not put down other people, but it is to elevate yourself, but not to the detriment of other people. Don't put yourself down. Don't put other people down as well. So to be truly humble, you have to realize that life can go on, life will go on without you. So now the question becomes, therefore, what? So what do you do now with that lifetime? That's the central question. Now, I was telling somebody during nutrition break when I was a little kid. I remember my dad got a computer, and I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I was very careful with it because I didn't want to break it. My dad picked up the keyboard and banged it on the desk a few times. Then he picked up and he dropped it, bang, hit the ground. I'm looking at him and then he flips it back over, washes it, types into it, and it works. And he said, "See, it still works. Didn't break it. So don't be so cautious with it." And it got me thinking, even at that age, and as I grew older, that one experience stuck with me because I realized, wow, things are not nearly as fragile as we think that they are. In other words, me being humble, I can recognize whatever I do in my life, I'm not going to destroy the earth. I'm not going to destroy the world. I'm not going to destroy the planet. I can make the planet worse. I can make humanity worse. I can be mean to people. I can actually make things worse, but I can't destroy it. By the same token, I can't save the world. I can't save the world, but I can make the world a bit better, and certainly a bit better for the people with whom I interact. And so those are those two choices that you have. I guess three choices that you have. One of them is to do absolutely nothing and just leave the world neutral, not better or worse for you having been here. Just a name on a tombstone somewhere with a dash that is probably completely explanatory of your life. It's just a dash, it just was. Or you can have a life that you can actually have a biography about, but it's all bad, man. You left the world worse. You were bad. You made people's lives worse. I know someone like this this person, I've known them a while, and yet everybody who they seem to interact with, they make their life worse. And if this person were to die today, I feel bad because if I went to their funeral, I really couldn't have anything good to say about this person, except I could say, well, at least it's over. Yeah, I know. And imagine if that's your life. If at the very end of it, nobody has anything positive to say. Or what's worse is maybe people have to make up stuff about you to say something positive. But imagine instead if your life is so much better at the end that people can't help but just tell stories about you that even just the stories themselves make the world a better place. Even better the interactions that you had. And so to be humble is to recognize that life will go on without you, of course, but that doesn't have to be a negative thing, man. Because the life that continues on after you is exactly going to be like I hate the analogy, but the plants or the flowers or whatever, of the seeds that you planted while you were here in this one little corner of the world, which is your garden. Wherever it is that you could have based yourself and planted yourself, you're going to have a sphere of influence. Some people will have a much bigger sphere of influence, of course. Elon Musk is going to reach way more people than most of us ever will, of course. Jeff Bezos is going to reach way more people than most of us. Mostly, for the positive or negative, I'll let you figure that out yourself. But to be humble is to recognize that you're not going to destroy anything. You're not going to save anything either. But you do have the power to make some things better, but also by that token make things far worse as well. So maybe those are our three options. Leave the world worse off for you having been here. Hopefully none of us wants that. At the very least, leave things neutral, so they're not better or worse, but just a wash. But once you can get a handle on that, maybe leave the world better off. Maybe leave it better off for you having been here. And so how is it that you do that? I don't need to tell you. Most of us already know. Be a good person, whatever that means. Do all the good you can, all the times that you can, every opportunity that you can. Whatever that means, I'll let you figure out for yourself what that even means. But you have to recognize that whatever it is that you're going to do, it's going to go on without you. It's going to go on without you. And that's that like humble place. But what it also means, by the way, is that it's going to go on without you. And so I guess the question becomes now, what are you afraid of? What has you so worried that you're not going to take that chance that you want to take? What's the worst that can happen? In fact, let me ask you, what's the worst that can happen to you in life?
Death.
Yeah, death. And guess what? It's going to happen. It's the ultimate statistic. 10 out of 10 people die. You look that up. I'm not making that up. 10 out of 10 people die. And yet you wake up every day and you manage to go about your life. So I guess that question continues. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid to ask your crush out? What's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen? They say no. They embarrass you. Ooh, you're going to die. You know that, right? You're going to apply for this job. Oh, but what if they don't hire me? Ooh. You're going to die. You know this. Everything else pales in comparison to that. And yet every great achievement that you attain, death is going to pale against. In other words, anything great that you do, these are the things that reverberate throughout time, man. These are the things that people remember you for. People don't typically remember you for your failures. People remember you for your few successes. And if you just put yourself out there enough and you go for it because you don't allow these terrors of whatever it is, which ultimately probably relates back to a death terror in some way, why don't you apply for the job? Well, what if I don't get it? Well, what are you afraid of? Well, ultimately that means I'm not good enough. And if I don't measure up, then that means I don't matter. And if I don't matter, I may as well have never even lived. Holy shit, just apply for the job, bro. Is it that deep? Probably. But you're gonna die anyway, so apply for the job. Ask your crush out. What if they say no? What do you hear? Not yet. Whatever it is. Because you're going to be remembered for the successes, and you're going to remember your life for the successes as well. The things that went well. And then sometimes that means a shotgun approach, man. You put 100 things out there for 2 or 3 things to go your way. Sometimes it means that. Sometimes it does. But you've got to be humble about it, man, and realize that it's going to go on. Whether you apply for that job or not, life's going to go on. Wouldn't it be better if you got the job? Maybe. We don't know, actually. Maybe it's the worst thing that could ever happen to you that you get the job. We don't know. And you won't know until afterwards. And even afterwards, you probably won't even know. All you'll know is that you lived a life. And so, I guess what I'm saying is be humble. Be humble. And go for it. Take your chances. Go for the opportunities. Take your chances. What's the worst that can happen? Ooh. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? I tried really hard to steer that in a positive direction. Last period was all dark, man. Yeah, they went all dark last period, man.
Care to give specifics?
No. But you can always go on Scallon Talks and watch it.